Hello and welcome to TennCom. Today we're going to talk about everything you need to know before you get your racket strung. So in today's video we're going to answer three big questions. How often should you get your racket strung? What kind of string should you pick? And last of all, what tension should you get your racket strung at? So first off, let's talk about stringing frequency. How often should you get your racket strung? No matter who you are, I don't even care, you should be stringing your racket at least once a year. You'll notice better control, better power, better spin, better comfort just from having fresher strings.
It feels good!
As the strings sit in the racket, even when you're not playing with them, they'll lose tension, they'll lose elasticity, they'll lose resiliency, and suddenly you're ending up with a really dead feeling board that's just not giving you the intended performance on the court. I don't even think you have to be very good at tennis to notice that kind of difference. Just a basic familiarity of strokes and what your racket is supposed to feel like is going to be enough for you to notice how much better fresh strings feel over old strings.
I'm going to give you 4 words to live by. New is always better.
Now, as you get better, you're going to want to restring more and more often. And there's a couple reasons why. First off, the better you are, typically the harder you're hitting it, either with more spin or just more ball speed, and the harder that is on the strings. They're going to lose tension a little bit faster because your impact is more intense, and they'll lose some of that coating, whether it be a poly or a multi, and that can increase the friction in the string bed, which severely reduces comfort and spin potential. In general, for like a 3.5 player, I'd recommend every 3 to 6 months. Ideally more, especially if you notice a difference, but maximum 6 months, and even by then they're probably getting pretty old and crispy. As you get to 4.0, 4.5, you're going to be wanting to look at 1 to 2 months or less. I like to string every 2 weeks. I notice serious tension loss and decrease in playability after 2 weeks, and by the time I get my lazy butt down to the store, it's probably been about a month, and I've been playing tennis terribly for 2 weeks because my strings are too loose, they're notched, so there's no spin and there's terrible snapback. When I was working at Courtside Sports and stringing my own racket, I was stringing every 1 to 2 weeks, and I was playing about 4 to 6 hours a week. Alright, so next up we're going to talk about stringing materials. There's 3 main kinds of stringing materials, and I'm going to throw in a bonus 4th right at the end. So first up, let's talk about the most popular, and that is polyester. So polyester came out starting in the late 90s. People call it a cheater string because the spin potential was so good. The first polyesters that came out were only polyester, so like a monofilament polyester string. As string tech developed, people were wanting better tension maintenance out of their polyester string and better playability duration, so they started adding additives, and that's why you might see the term co-poly on some of the strings. And pretty much every modern string that comes out today is an example of a co-poly. Luxlon ALU Power famously has aluminium or aluminum as an additive along with the polyester. A lot of the time, these string companies are going to be pretty cagey about saying what extra they put into their polys, and that's because they're trying to protect their patents, maximize profit in the long run, right?
I'm about to find out what makes a Krabby Patty taste so good!
And last up, the other distinction that you'll want, multifilament polyesters have been coming out. So strings like Luxlon Smart have actually more than one piece of polyester kind of woven together to create a much softer response, and it's kind of a new tech. I don't think it's quite developed to the point where it's really accessible and good for advanced level players, but it's really fun to play around with, and it's nice to see technological improvements even in 2022. The last thing that you'll see with polyesters is different types of shapes. Originally, polyesters were all round strings. The benefits with rounder strings is usually better control. I found the launch angles off round strings are usually quite a bit lower than shaped strings, as there's just less texture in the string bed, leading to less inconsistencies when hitting. The next is going to be shaped polys. There's a lot of different shapes, 8-sided like RPM Blast, There's a four-sided gear shape like Syn Gut Tour Bike. There's straight up four-sided squares, even triangle strings like the head gravity hybrid have existed. And basically, the more aggressive the shape, typically the higher the launch angle and the more inconsistent your launch angle. But what the shape does help with is greater friction between the strings and the ball. So it grabs the ball, and theoretically that should lead to greater spin so long as you are swinging with enough power to make the strings snap back. And the last type is a textured string like ALU Power Rough, something that's great for the cross. These strings typically have a really low string-on-string coefficient of friction, so they're good for snapback, which is why you'll often see players using them as crosses. Roger Federer and Novak Djokovic both use ALU Power Rough in the cross of their gut hybrids, and a lot of head players will use Head Hawk Rough in the cross on poly hybrids, typically opting for Lynx Tour in the mains. A couple of polys that I love, if you're looking for maximum control, RPM power is going to be the best. It feels a lot different from other strings because the launch angle is super low. Know that going in, but it's immense for control. For spin, I really like Syn Gut Tour Bike. It's a little bit more on the power side, but it's got a really aggressive shape, and it's not too out of control like some of these square strings you'll see, like Weiss Cannon Ultra Cable or Grapplesnake Neon Hybrid. Shout out to Grapplesnake Neon Hybrid though, as I think it's a really good string. If you want good tension maintenance, I recommend either Syn Gut Confidential or Grapplesnake Tour Sniper. Both have a mild edge to them, have a slightly softer feel, but tension maintenance and playability duration are very strong. If you want comfort, I really like Yonex Poly Tour Pro. It's a great feeling string, and you'll notice a ton of Yonex's players are using that one. So the next type of string that we have is nylon string. Sometimes you'll hear nylon referred to as Syn Gut or synthetic gut, and that is because it was designed to mimic natural gut, which is kind of like the OG of strings. Compared to polyester, nylons are almost always softer, and there's two main types that you'll encounter. Single core nylons, these are the most commonly referred to as like the Syn Guts, and then there's multifilaments. Multifilament means there's like 1,000 little strings all woven together to make that one main string. So the benefits of a multifilament over a single core nylon are better tension maintenance, a softer feel, more power, better comfort, and sometimes more spin. All things that most people are looking for, and that's why you'll see a little bit of a price hike with the multifilament over the single core nylon. Do I recommend the single core nylon, even though like they're theoretically worse? Absolutely. I think they're really good, especially if you're trying to save a little bit of money. Do I think you're going to notice an improvement from the single core to the multifilament? Yes, most likely. I think you don't have to be that good to notice the difference. It's a lot softer feeling, but the durability is actually a little bit less. Those little strands, they do tend to fray a little bit quicker than the single core, so that's another little bit of a trade-off that you have to think about. A couple nylons that I like for single core, that Prince Duraflex and the Head PPS if you're on a budget. For the multifilament, I really like Head Velocity MLT for softness and spin. The black color especially has a nice sleeve kind of coating that's super slippery, meaning it's really easy to string, but also great for snapback and spin production. For power and comfort, I like Technofiber X1 Biphase, and if control and durability is what you need from your multifilament nylon, then Technofiber Triax is the way to go. Alright, so the third type of string that we're going to talk about is natural gut. This is the classic, the original Bablat's formula VS for Version Supérieure is still the best one in my opinion. So Bablat originally was a string company. They're over 100 years old. It was in the 1800s that they started making natural gut string. Natural gut string, despite being like ancient tech, is still king in terms of playability duration, in terms of elasticity, in terms of tension maintenance, in terms of power, in terms of comfort. That's why you still see it on the Pro Tour today. In fact, I would argue it's seen a resurgence where more and more players are using natural gut hybrids with polyester. I think a lot of people are overlooking natural gut. They think it's too expensive and it has a bad reputation for premature breakage. When I was stringing every day, not that many people were choosing natural gut, but I didn't see that much premature breakage, to be honest. If you're experiencing premature breakage, it's most likely stringer technique. So if you're stringing your own rackets, it's up to you to make sure that string doesn't break. If you're taking it to someone, you want to make sure that they're cleaning their machine extremely often and that they know how to string natural gut. It takes special care, and if you're taking your rackets into a home stringer, they might not be taking the care that's needed to string natural gut. So if they don't charge you extra for labor on natural gut, maybe it's not the best place to go. A couple natural guts that I do really like are obviously Babolat VS, probably in the 16 gauge for most players, but also Babolat Tonic in the 15L is a really sneaky good choice for some rec players. So Tonic is kind of like the factory seconds from the VS line, so it's still natural gut, but it's just not quite as high quality, so you'll see a price drop, which is why I recommend you go with the 15L. You're getting that thicker string and the playability duration is really good. It really has a unique feel. It's super soft, super powerful, but it still promotes spin, especially if you have a poly in the cross. You're still going to be getting good snapback from the gut. I got like 3 to 4 weeks when I was using Tonic in the mains, and that's pretty good. So definitely don't discount it. And if you have arm issues, try a natural gut hybrid and put like a single core nylon in the cross, and that should be a good like budget setup for the best arm comfort you can get. A couple pros that are still using natural gut: Djokovic, Federer, Serena Williams. Some of the younger guys, even like Tiem's, used natural gut in the past. I think Tsitsipas is now using natural gut following his little wrist elbow issue that he was experiencing, just because it offers like the best comfort that you can get. And when you're a pro and you're playing that often, anything you can do to reduce your chance of injury is going to be worth doing. Alright, so my last shout out is to Kevlar or Aramid. I have played with Kevlar. It's crazy. I wouldn't recommend it to most people. It's fun to play around with and experiment with, so if you want like a new experience with tennis, try Kevlar just for memes. I'll probably do a video like going on extra memeage with Kevlar, because there are some crazy people out there stringing with tension differentials like 90 mains with Kevlar and 20 crosses with poly, trying to get like crazy spin setups. A lot of people like using Ashway's Zyx string because it's really soft but super slippery. The idea is that Zyx in the crosses to give you extreme softness but still good snapback, so you can get the Kevlar mains to snap back. Agassi used Kevlar in his 107 square inch oversized rackets, so it's not like it's a completely obsolete choice, it's just a slightly obsolete choice. Okay, quick camera angle change here. I was getting tired and realized that I stopped recording and forgot to talk about tension, something you guys always ask me. So the question that I hate the most that you guys ask me in the comments is, what tension should I choose? If you do research on tension, like look at the actual like academic research that's been done on tension, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. Look at the pros. The pros are stringing like from 20 pounds to 79 pounds. Philip Delandry, he was a pro and he was stringing in the 20s. I've heard stories of Daniel Nestor bringing his racket and saying, string my racket with your hands. Don't even use the machine to pull tension. I don't even care. That's how little tension matters. Whereas Dustin Brown is stringing at like 79 pounds. Rafael Nadal has always strung at 55 pounds. He never changes. Other guys, they'll get a bag full of different rackets. Like Federer has a couple rackets at a bunch of different tensions. So no, doesn't matter. I do like Andre Agassi's advice though.
And really the racket you want to use is the heaviest racket possible and the loosest tension possible,
because you want your equipment to give you as much power and comfort as possible. So I like that idea. If you're stringing with poly, really unlikely that you need to go above 55 pounds. Just if you get a new racket, string it at the same tension that your old racket was strung at, and then slowly go down until you can't control it anymore. That's how I would figure out your tension, but don't fuss too much about a pound here or there. It's really unlikely that it's going to make a big effect, and there's some research that shows that tension is actually more about the sound and response, like the auditory response that you feel. I actually want to do a video where I blind test a tight racket and a loose racket and see if I have my ears plugged, if I can really notice a difference. So like this video if you want to see that. Tension is stupid. String material is important. String frequency is the most important. Get your racket strung more often. Thank you, goodbye.